Today I want to talk a little bit about nutrition for fat loss. Notice I use the word fat loss and not weight loss because we want to try to focus on improving our body composition. We want to try to lose fat. We don't want to try to lose lean muscle mass. Your lean muscle mass is correlated to your life expectancy, and the more lean muscle mass you have, the less chance you have of dying from all causes. So we want to maintain that muscle mass or potentially even increase that lean muscle mass, which I'll talk about a little bit further down in this conversation. Standing on the scales is not a great way to measure your progress when you're trying to lose fat, because the scales don't show a good representation of this. If you lose 2 kilos of muscle mass because you're under eating, the scales show you've lost weight, but you've lost lean muscle mass, which is not healthy. If you put on 2 kilos of muscle mass, but you lose 4 kilos of body fat, the scales show 2 kilos. But in reality, you've lost 4 kilos of body fat, which is something that you should be very proud of and very happy with. So you really need to be using like an in-body scan, a DEXA, or a better way to measure your body composition and start to look at the fat loss. You need to change potentially your lifestyle, particularly diet and training, to support the maintenance and growth of lean muscle mass and to help reduce the body fat. Okay, so don't depend on the weight on the scales, and let's try to think more about fat loss, not weight loss. Okay, there's a lot of argument in the health and fitness space about calories in and calories out. Calories matter, calories don't matter. A calorie is a calorie, blah, blah, blah. And it can get quite confusing, even for people like myself who work in the health and fitness industry. I want to try to give you a different sort of perspective on this, and I think cutting calories can work, but it can also be detrimental to your health, and this is what we need to be careful on, because I think a lot of people are cutting far too many calories from their diet, and this is causing them to lose lean muscle mass and causing them to store more body fat. Okay, so I want you to think about your health in terms of the typical bell curve. If you're eating too many calories, nutrient void calories especially, then of course you're going to put on weight, particularly body fat. If you're not eating enough calories, you're also going to put on weight. You're going to store more body fat, and I'll talk about the reasons behind that further down. So this U-curve, you want to be in the middle. You want to find the optimal amount of calories that are going to be good for your health. Too much, gain weight. Too little, gain weight, as in gain fat. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this, because I think too many people are cutting too many calories in an attempt to lose fat, and it's not working for them. It's yo-yo dieting. They'll lose weight, but they lose muscle mass, slows down their metabolism, and they'll gain weight back, and they'll gain it back with interest. So let's think about this. If you're cutting too many calories, you're going to see fat gain, you're going to see low libido, you're going to see digestive issues, you're going to see hormone imbalance, potentially you're going to start to see fluctuations in your energy levels, you're going to slow down your metabolism, and you're going to lose lean muscle mass. So let's dig into each of these a little bit, and hopefully I can explain the reasons behind this. You're going to gain fat because your body's going to go into what's called starvation mode. Your body thinks that we're in famine. There's not much food on the outside world. So on the inside, your body's going to try to conserve energy in terms of making more fat or storing more fat. Your hormones are going to get set up in a state to store more fat, okay? Because there's not enough food out there. You're sending signals to your body saying there's a famine, okay? Your body can store body fat because it's not metabolic. It does not cost energy to store body fat. Whereas if you are going to store lean muscle mass is metabolic. It requires energy to maintain that muscle mass. So your body's thinking famine, store more fat, burn off or break down lean muscle mass. This is not what you want, because it's going to slow down your metabolism, okay? Low libido. If there's a famine, now is not a good time to bring a life into this world. Now, this affects females more, okay? So your reproductive hormones are going to slow down because it thinks there's a famine on. There's not enough food or resources for me to A, get pregnant and support this life, and B, if the baby was born, there's not enough food in the world to feed the baby. So now's not a good time to reproduce. So a lot of females start to have problems with their menstruation cycle. It becomes slow, or it becomes fast, or it just goes all over the place because their hormones are all over the place. For males, it can actually increase testosterone, but we go back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. If there was a time of famine, the men were probably going to have to hunt for longer. They're going to have to travel further, and their testosterone levels can actually increase maybe in a time of famine. But obviously this has got a tipping point. If you're going to be doing it for too long, there's a point where you're not going to have the nutrients to be able to keep the testosterone levels high. So there's a fine line for men as well. And I think this is important because a lot of people are using intermittent fasting as a tool to increase what they think is fat loss, but it can have detrimental impacts on our libido and our sex hormones, and it can actually lead to fat gain. So we've got to be careful with intermittent fasting as a tool. There is a time to use it and a time not to use it. And I'm sorry, but females have to be very careful with something like intermittent fasting because it can destroy their menstruation cycle. Digestive issues, okay? If there's not a lot of food out there, we're slowing down the production of digestive enzymes and stomach acid. It costs resources to make these fluids. But if it's a time of famine, do we need to make as much digestive enzymes and stomach acid? Potentially not. So we slow down the production of this. And people see this as a symptom of, like, when I wake up in the morning and I eat breakfast, I feel slow and I feel heavy and I feel lethargic. Because your stomach doesn't have enough stomach acid and digestive enzymes to break down the meal you've just put in your stomach. So it's working hard to try to break down that meal because potentially you've skipped breakfast so often that your body's not even used to food coming in at that time of day. But this is the wrong approach. People think, oh, intermittent fasting, I'll not eat breakfast because I feel more energized. But then all you're doing is putting the body in that starvation mode, and you're not feeding the body, giving it the resources that it needs to thrive and survive. We want stomach acid to be high. Our stomach acid should be high, okay? So you've got to eat food for breakfast and you've got to eat regular meals so that you can keep that stomach acid high. You can digest and absorb the nutrients out of the food, and this will also help to bring your metabolic system up, or your metabolism up, which is a key factor to obviously maintaining your body composition, burning fat and building lean muscle mass. So like I said, slow metabolism. If you're not eating enough, your metabolism slows down. Loss of lean muscle mass. Muscle is metabolic. It costs energy to have. The more muscle you have, the more you can eat, or the more you want to eat to maintain that muscle mass, okay? And then the more muscle mass you have and the more you're eating, the less your body needs to store body fat. It's not in a state of starvation. It realizes food is abundant out there. I don't need to store excess energy, okay? I can build my muscle mass, maintain my muscle mass, and put energy into that process. So we need to be really careful about the calories we're eating. You need to be eating enough calories to maintain or increase lean muscle mass. And you need to be eating enough calories so that your body doesn't step into this state of starvation and slow down its hormones, slow down its digestive enzymes, slow down everything in the body, your metabolism, and store more body fat, okay? If you're cutting more than around about 500 calories, you're going to put yourself into this state of starvation. So you've got to get those calories back up. I recommend if you've been dieting for a long time and cutting calories, you're actually going to be better off eating an excess of calories, bringing this back up slowly and eating a little bit more so that you start to get the metabolism working again. You start to get your hormones working again. You start to get your digestive enzymes working again. When I tell you to eat more, what I'm trying to say is to eat more real whole foods. This is not a license to go out and start eating crappy foods, high calorie, low nutrients. We want a very nutrient dense diet, and we're going to get that from some of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. It's like animal proteins, animal fats, okay? Thinking about this is going to be good for you. You should be eating enough protein to maintain your lean muscle mass. We want to be eating fruits and vegetables, real whole food, and we don't want to be putting it into smoothies, into juices and all this sort of stuff, because that takes away the fiber. It increases the absorption rate of the sugar. It increases our insulin levels. It's not the best way to consume our fruits and vegetables. I don't like moving people on to meal replacements. I'm not a fan of protein shakes. I'm not a fan of these shakes because they don't help your metabolism. How much does your metabolism have to work to digest and break down a liquid meal? Not very much. You're encouraging this slow metabolism, okay? If I eat solid food, let's say I eat a steak, how much does your metabolism have to work to break down that steak and metabolize that? Certain foods cost more energy to digest than the food is actually worth. And this is where the whole calories thing starts to break down. If I have a steak that's got so many calories, but my digestive system requires more calories to break that down, then that food is virtually calorie neutral or even a calorie deficit. If I eat a whole apple where I'm eating the skin and the fiber of the apple, okay, compared to juicing an apple, is that the same calories? It's a totally different thing, okay, because the metabolism has to work harder to break down the whole apple, the fiber, the skin, everything in the apple, compared to the juice, which is now a liquid. The metabolism doesn't have to work at all. So this is a bit of a failure with the whole idea of, calories in and calories out. But at the same time, you want to be eating enough so that you're giving your body the confidence that it's not in famine, and that it's got enough resources and nutrients to maintain its lean muscle mass, and it doesn't need to store body fat, okay? So by increasing your calories initially to get the system working again, then we can go into a calorie deficit of roughly sort of 400 or 500 calories potentially, and we can record that, we can track that with something like an in-body scanner, where we can start to look at, okay, what's shifting? Are we losing lean muscle mass, or are we losing body fat? Do we need to increase the calories, and see how that works for a short period of time? What can we experiment with? When you're eating certain foods, how does that make your digestive system feel, okay? What gives you energy? What makes you feel good? What slows you down? But this is going to take some time to get your digestive track working again, your gut working again. If you've been cutting calories for too long and there's not enough stomach acid and digestive enzymes to start breaking down meals, everything you eat's probably going to make you feel bloated and sluggish and slow. So it takes time to get these things back in check. I hope you found this useful. If you've got questions, please let me know. I'm here to sort of help and guide as best I can. But what I'm saying is, I think too many people are cutting too many calories. Too many people are intermittent fasting too often and not eating enough food for their body to survive and their body to thrive.